Hello and welcome back to the Drought Proof Garden. Believe it or not, it's time once again for one of my monthly garden progress report / reference videos. This time around, I'm going to be doing a voiceover as opposed to narrating while I walk. I just figured I would spare everyone the usual cacophony of barking dogs, loud engines, and blaring music that is oh so common in my little neighborhood. Overall, the garden really took off through the month of May, and the harvest has been starting to trickle in, mostly so far in the form of various hot peppers. We're also getting the occasional cherry tomato here and there. I'm going to start off in my winter squash bed here just because I'm absolutely blown away by the amount of growth that's occurred over the last month here. For reference, here's the exact same bed only 1 month ago, just a little after I transplanted everything out here. I have two varieties of squash going in this bed, one of which is called Black Futsu, which is a machata, or basically a variety of butternut squash. The other, and the one that accounts for most of the growth explosion in this bed, is an accidental cross, an unknown hybrid that emerged last year, and I liked the squash it produced, so I saved the seeds. And as you can see, I'm already almost out of headspace on my trellis. This thing has been going complete gangbusters over the last month. And as you see there, it's already forming some really nice, healthy-looking fruit. One problem I am still having, I'm still battling whitefly, especially on this unknown hybrid variety here. I'll have to probably retreat soon. Similarly, my sweet potato beds here have really filled in super quickly. Again, here are the same two sweet potato beds just 1 month ago. Things were looking pretty sparse back then, and they're really started to fill in now. What I love about sweet potatoes is they're a definite set-it-and-forget-it crop. I'm not really going to have to do too much with these for the next 5 months while I await those nice big sweet roots to develop. I'm going to keep them watered. I might give them a little phosphorus and potassium fertilizer to help the root development along a little bit, but that's really about it. Interestingly, I'm getting all of these volunteer tomatillo plants coming up through my sweet potatoes. It's strange because I haven't grown tomatillos in this bed in 2 years. I honestly didn't know that seeds could sit dormant in soil for that long. On to the tomato report, starting with a new-to-us variety slicing tomato called Virginia Sweets. And what I'm noticing about this so far is a very low number of blossoms and subsequently a low number of fruits that are developing. Otherwise, the plants are very healthy. It's just seeming like it's not a very high-yielding kind of variety. In retrospect, I guess I probably should not have pruned these down to a single stem apiece. But again, I've never grown these before, so I didn't know. It's all an experiment. What I am doing is I'm letting a couple of suckers go just to have a few more productive stems for this variety. But I'm thinking it's probably not going to get us that much. But hey, the tomatoes may taste so amazing that the low yield makes it worth it. We'll find out in a month or two here. By contrast, our Cherokee Purples, our other slicing variety, which is becoming an annual favorite of ours, these are doing great with these nice big clutches of large fruits developing. These will probably ripen sometime over the next month when we can start enjoying these. Cherokee Purples as a whole do great for us here in the hot, dry summers of Sacramento. I'm thinking that they are great in dry environments, but I have heard, and this is reiterating stuff I've already said, from other gardeners with humid summers, they don't do so well in the humidity. But here in bone dry Sacramento, they seem to do great, and they're a real favorite of ours. Our one and only sauce paste variety this year is the Rio Grande, and we've devoted most of our tomato space to these actually. I have something like 54 of these plants going. I've found that these are particularly suited to places that have hot, dry summers, but with nights that can get on the cool side. Sometimes we'll have days in the 90s or 100s, and a night will be in the upper 50s. And these are noted for being productive in such an environment. Recently, I did go through and I did a major pruning project of these. I had let them get a little out of hand, and I opened up a lot of airspace toward the bottoms, trimming off anything that was dead, and really clearing anything that wasn't a fruit or a blossom for a good foot up from the stems. And it opened everything up, and I saw just how many fruits on these are starting to form. And we even have one here that's starting to ripen up, which is encouraging. So last year, We got an average of 8 pounds per plant from our Rio Grande tomatoes. And with 54 plants going, if we get something similar, that's going to be a lot of good sauce and salsa. We like to put up a lot of tomato products when we can. So this group of Rio Grande fruits here was unprotected due to a gap in my shade cloth setup for a couple of weeks. And already it started to show signs of sun scald. Now, even though it hasn't been very hot, just being in direct sun for 10 or more hours a day can really take it out of both leaves and fruits. So I improvised and put a strip of burlap to cover that gap in the cloth. Now, my shade cloth setup is a bit hodgepodge, patchwork, not the most sightly affair in the world, but it works. It's effective. While it doesn't really reduce temperatures under the cloth, it's more pleasant to work, and it reduces plant stress by reducing sunburn. And here's my single bed of determinate cherry tomatoes. There's a blend of Patio Select, which is a yellow variety. You can see a number of starting to ripen and trickle in here. I also have a variety from Burpee called Baxter's Bush Champion that have started to form fruits but haven't quite started to ripen yet. So I'm sure over the next couple of weeks here we'll start to get overwhelmed with cherry tomatoes. And I'll have to do a lot of dehydrating and grinding into powder to preserve what we can eat. And I also wanted to show off the sunflowers that I've planted, even though some of them are getting a little past their prime. One of my favorites, this is a variety, again, it's offered by Burpees. It's called Velvet Queen, and what I like about them is it's not a single flowering sunflower. You get all of these little smaller flowers that shoot off the stalk, and the whole thing lasts a little longer than a typical single stem, single flower sunflower variety. I also love that these are bringing in so many bees and hummingbirds and other pollinators. So it's overall really good for my garden. And then I can feed the seeds to our chickens and other birds when they're done. So here in this bed, I have 4 eggplants. Didn't plant a ton this year because we don't typically have great luck with eggplant. But in spite of being chewed by something pretty heavily, probably flea beetles, they love eggplants, these are starting to form some really good fruits. So that's encouraging. The variety is called Orient Express, and they're said to be a particularly heat-tolerant variety of eggplant. So I'm hopeful that we'll at least get a little bit of eggplant parm this summer. In these 2 beds here, I have a mix of bell peppers and Anaheim chili peppers, as well as some basil here and there. The peppers are finally starting to make a recovery after suffering from a bit of edema when they were under grow lights. So I'm hoping that even though they had a lot of stress early in their life, that we'll get some yield out of these. Peppers in general are another thing that I don't really do too well with. I really have to work on my pepper game. Here I have a bed of Armenian cucumber with some dill in the background, kind of a pickle bed. These really, again, started to take off within the last few weeks as temperatures increased. Armenian cucumbers are definite heat lovers. They probably wouldn't even really need to be under the shade cloth, but I don't have any other place for them. And here are my asparagus beans, similar to the Armenian cukes. They're real heat lovers. They're always slow to start, but then once they start climbing their trellis, they really start going. I am thinking that probably by the end of next month, we'll be eating beans. Yard-long, or AKA asparagus beans, are a great substitute in hot weather for green beans. Here I have my Boston pickling cucumbers, which have really started, again, taking off in the last couple of weeks. I'm growing a lot fewer of these than I did last year, just because we still have full jars of dill pickles that we made last summer, and I don't want to necessarily grow everything that is destined to become chicken feed. So I'm trying to be a little smarter with my space, trying to only grow as much as we're actually going to use or can give away. And believe it or not, it can be hard to give away garden-grown vegetables. It's a strange thing. Sometimes vining plants like this need a little encouragement to climb the trellis. In front of these, I had lettuce going, a hot weather lettuce blend, and we had a few days of 90-degree plus temps in a row, and it bolted. So whatever we weren't able to eat, I gave to the chickens, and I replaced with some purple basil and a few French marigold plants. This is a new variety of cucumber for us. It's more of a traditional slicing variety cucumber called Baxter's Bush, not Baxter's Bush Champion, just Bush Champion. Baxter's Bush are the tomatoes. And they're starting to form some fruits. They said it is a bush habit, but I can already see it starting to vine. Sometimes these so-called bush varieties of vining plants are actually more like a semi-vining. It's still a vine, it just stops at 6 feet instead of like 30. In these planters, I have a zucchini variety called Black Beauty. Between these and another planter elsewhere, we have 3 plants, and that's probably 2 zucchini plants too many. They tend to be very prolific. But, you know, we use a lot of them on pizzas and, of course, chocolate zucchini bread. Who can beat that? On our patio, I have some large planters with sunflowers surrounded by various herbs. Also, these 2 pepper plants here, a habanero, and here is a cayenne. And the cayenne is doing really well. I like that it's a blend of red and yellow. It just creates a really nice color combo. And cayennes are one of the few peppers, along with serranos, that are actually hot for us. Habaneros, sometimes they do well, but for the most part, like I get 1 or 2 per plant. Again, peppers. Also on the topic of hot peppers, some of our real deal hybrids have begun to ripen. These are offered by Burpee and are advertised as having the flavor of a habanero and the hotness level of a Tabasco. What I'm finding so far is they taste a lot like a sweet red bell pepper that has the hotness level of maybe a mild jalapeno to a serrano. So not quite as hot as a Tabasco, but that could be growing conditions. Moving out to my recently installed front yard garden, everything here is starting to come in very nicely. In this U-shaped ring here, I have a combination of sunflowers and a bush variety butternut squash called Butterbush. That was a late replacement for one that didn't germinate, so that's a bit of a runt there. But yeah, everything here is coming in way better than I expected it would so far, given, you know, it's mostly clay soil that I amended with a bit of compost. So that's an encouraging start. In this blue planter, I have a leftover black futsu squash that I just didn't have room for in my primary squash bed out back. And I'm noticing, interestingly, that this one is doing way better. It's already flowering and fruiting. It's doing way better than the one that I have out back under the shade cloth. So I'm wondering if these butternut variety squashes, your machadas, just do better under hot blazing sun and not having a shade cloth up. And that's where my backyard garden project stands now at the very end of May. So I'm back to a little bit more tomato wrangling before I hang it up for the weekend. And before I sign off, I just want to put it out there that I am very open to topic suggestions. So if anybody has anything they want me to cover here on my fledgling YouTube channel pertaining to backyard gardening in a hot, dry climate, let me know in the comments. I'll see what I can do. So until next time, let's hope it all doesn't die.